Again, everyone, welcome. We are glad to have you. My name is Pierre Uwimana, and I will be moderating this discussion this evening. And like I said, my name is Pierre Uwimana, and I am with Florida Immigrant Coalition. I work there as a refugee organizer, and I am a refugee from Rwanda, and so I'm glad to be here and facilitate this discussion as we celebrate the Welcoming Week and of the refugees and other immigrants in this country, as we reflect on their lives in this country. So we will be discussing on what it means to welcome. What it means to welcome. And we are aiming at providing examples and best practices of welcoming to allow Americans to meet their refugee neighbors and to encourage communities across the US to prioritize welcoming practices. So, we will be looking at what it means to welcome people who have been, displaced into their community, how our communities here can foster belonging, how we can demonstrate to our new neighbors that they are seen. So to answer these questions, I have a panel of panelists who will be discussing some topics about welcoming, and I would like to invite them to introduce themselves. I have Isabel, Kayembe, Khalil, Arab, Bahati, Kanyamanza, and so I will welcome them to say their name, where they work, and also their connection to the Refugee Collective. So I would start with Bahati, and then Khalil, Kayembe, and then we continue.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Pierre. It's nice to always speak about refugee issues. Thank you, everyone who is participating in this forum. We look forward to engaging in this conversation. My name is Bahati Kanyamanza, as Pierre stated. I'm originally from the Congo. I've been in the US for slightly over 7 years. I was resettled in 2016, and I am the director of partnerships at IRAP. I look forward to this conversation.
Hi, Pierre, thanks for having me. And hello, everyone. My name is Khalil Arab. I'm the SIV and Allies Program Manager at Combined Arms. I'm originally from Afghanistan. I moved to the United States in December of 2019. And I am managing SIV and Allies within the Combined Arms, which is a veteran service organization. And I'm also a member of Refugee Collective. And it's good to be here today.
Thank you, Khalil, Pierre. My name is Isabel. My name is Isabel Kayembe. I'm a refugee from Angola. And I was resettled in 2015. I'm 8 years in the United States. And I reside in Rhode Island. And I'm a delegate, from a Refugee Congress delegate from Rhode Island. And so I joined the collective 3 years ago. And I work as a case worker at the Refugee Dream Center. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you so much, all the panelists, for allowing us to learn from your experiences and to steal some of your wealth of knowledge so that we can, foster welcoming practices in our American society. For the audience, once again, welcome. We are going to, discuss, but before that, I want to, introduce our collective. The Storytellers Collective is the Refugee Storytellers Collective is an initiative of people who have experienced forced displacement in the US. And we believe in sharing our perspectives and experiences, in order to foster social change. So we partner with a Refugee Advocacy Lab, Refugees International, Refugee Congress, Refugee Council USA, USA for UNHCR, WeaveTales. The collective is also based on the belief that refugees themselves are the most powerful messengers for advancing the movement for the rights of displaced people. So membership in the collective is free and open to anyone who has experienced forced displacement and also is residing in the US. So we offer a series of training sessions to members throughout the year to help build skills and create community among members. So without further ado, I would like to go straight to our discussion. And I have a few questions that I will ask, the panelists, and each one of them, I will give them about 5 minutes to respond. And then after that, we are going to have a Q&A session where you can also ask questions, and you can also put your questions in the chat, Q&A session in the chat, the questions in the chat, and then we can answer them as we proceed. So to start, I would like to ask Mr. Khalil, what can inclusion look like for those who have sought refuge in the United States, and how have you felt welcomed in your community?
Thank you again, Pierre. And first of all, let me apologize because I was stuck in the traffic in Houston, and if anyone who's been in Houston probably understand what traffic looked like at this time of the day. So that's why I'm tuning in from my vehicle. To answer your question, inclusion for me means to feel belonged, to have a place that you can call a community, to have a network where you can actually reach out to when you need support, and to feel welcome is the most important part of inclusion. To feel comfortable in your skin, to be who you are, to be able to just represent who you actually are, to be just yourself is what it means to be included. And for me, I reside in Houston, Texas, and since 4 years ago, when I moved here, I sought a community where I actually felt belong, and I become part of that community. The SIV and Allies community was an amazing hub for me where I could connect with like-minded people, with peers, and it was supported by a group of veterans that I also had a prior connection through my service in Afghanistan. So that community was existing where I could actually join them and felt welcome, being able to network with them, being able to identify the challenges that I was facing in the first few months of my arrival, and also being able to get the support from members of the community who already been here and familiar with the culture and knew how to navigate the system. So for me, again, all these elements are part of being included, and a society can always be inclusive when they actually help go an extra mile to make sure that the new member of that society are included into that society.
Thank you so much, Mr. Khalil. Yes, you know, there is nothing like feeling welcome in a place that is new to you by the people you meet, and feeling, you know, who you are, nothing to change about your values. There is nothing like that. And I would like to turn it over to Bahati Kanyamanza and also asking the same questions. You know, Bahati.
Thank you so much, Pierre. I think Khalil just mentioned some of the things, what he thinks about, you know, inclusion and how he feels welcomed. First of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Americans who accept us as refugees and welcome us in their country and give us, you know, a home to start our new lives. I think that's the dream of every refugee. And personally, having been a refugee for over 20 years, I can't take this opportunity for granted. Thank you to many Americans on this platform and those ones who might not be here. Back to the question, I think when we come to the US, when we are resettled, we come with hopes and aspirations. And for me to feel included and to feel welcomed is to see how those hopes and aspirations are achieved by many refugees, including myself, and making sure that we access the opportunities we dreamt of when we are still back in our host countries or in the various refugee camps. Number one, we come here with the hopes of our children getting an education. Many young people come with the hope of, you know, starting school here or also, you know, improving their education. I think for me, finding a way on how these young people can access these opportunities, education, healthcare, those who dream of starting, you know, projects, entrepreneurship. I think for me, that's one of the key ways to say that I feel included and I feel welcomed. We also come here to seek for safety. Many refugees have fled their home countries because of violence in those countries. So I think coming here and finding safety, I think it's important for many refugees, including myself. But at the same time, we also understand that, of course, in every home, in every country, there are challenges like gun violence. We have seen a few cases here and there where refugees are faced challenges when it comes to being shot by the police or otherwise. I think those are some of the high hopes and aspirations we come with as refugees. How have I felt, you know, welcomed in the US? I think personally, I was received by a resettlement agency, International Refugee Committee in New York, and they did everything they could to support me. But at the same time, I later realized that the entire community has to play a role in making sure that refugees feel welcomed and included in their community. I'll share specific examples of what the community has done beyond my resettlement agency. Number one, when I moved to Connecticut in Brattleboro, the community came together. They brought us home stuff. They brought us chairs. They brought us things to the extent that our house could not even take them. I remember when I moved there, I was going to my grad school in Vermont, which is a program that was created by a School for International Training and the World Learning. I think those with the power and the resources can also help refugees to create special programs which can benefit them in the long run to be able to sustain themselves in their various communities. So I think resource sharing for those who have extra or enough to share, also it doesn't mean to be enough to have enough to share. So I think sharing some of these opportunities, sharing information when we come here, we don't know much about the US, or actually we don't know anything. And you know, exploring the system is intense. It's crazy. Education system, health systems. The US is just a system where even when you speak to Americans themselves are struggling to navigate it. Now imagine someone from the refugee camp who has never stepped in the US, who doesn't know anything. We need that community support. So I think for me, sharing information, helping refugees navigating the system, registering kids in school, working with these refugee agencies to see how they can also provide volunteer hours to some of these refugee agencies and making donations. I think for me, that's what I would call inclusion and feeling welcomed. Back to you, Pierre.
Thank you so much, Bahati, for such an elaborate, way of describing how, inclusion looks like and how you felt welcomed. Like you, I can't say thank you enough to the American society that, welcomed us, while our own community, had rejected us. And yeah, thank you so much. I would like to turn it over to Kayembe, and again, how does inclusion look like for those who have sought refuge in the US, and for you, how have you felt welcomed in your community?
Thank you so much, Pierre, for the question. For me, inclusion means bringing diversity, expertise, and also variety of cultural backgrounds, and also identity, because we are looking for identity. For example, myself, when we come here as a refugee, I lived in a refugee camp for more than 17 years. And when I arrived here, I felt that my life started here, because in the refugee camp, we were staying there. We didn't know what tomorrow will bring. We didn't have any opportunity to have a say on whatever decision can be made for us. Now that we come here, we have that opportunity to voice out whatever we think that is right for us. And also we share resources and services with the host community, which is the Americans. And as Bahati said, we really thank the American community or the American government for allowing us to come to this country, because this is a land of opportunities, and we are sharing the opportunities of every American with the refugees. Or as refugees, we are sharing the same opportunities. And that gives us also the sense of belonging, and give us also the self-sufficiency. When I talk about self-sufficiency, I came here 8 years ago, and I'm already a home owner twice. I bought 2 homes. In 8 years, I have 2 homes. And this is something that myself, sometimes I ask how I did it. I don't know. But I'm also so proud to be a home owner and being a landlord and rent my home to the host community. Is really, I'm proud for myself. And I also say that being inclusion, it doesn't mean burden. We are not a burden. We are not. We are here to work. When we come here, the first thing we want to do is to work, because we didn't have the opportunity to work in the refugee camp. And when I arrived here, I was welcomed in a very good way here in Rhode Island, because the first 2 weeks, I had a visitor coming to my house who was doing a survey on health promotion and this on the refugees. And that survey, they wanted to start a training on health promotion. And I was one of the people who was selected to be part of the survey. And during that survey, I asked how I can get involved. Just 2 weeks. And the next question that I got, the next answer, they say, this is my card, please call me, and you can volunteer, and there are other opportunities there. And that's how I joined the Refugee Dream Center, where I'm working as a caseworker. And people don't care if you are new if or not, they just help. And what I see is also what makes me to have that sense of belonging is that inclusion is also means that just ask, you are answered. And that's what the Americans do. Even if you ask a homeless, you have a question, or you are lost or something, like whoever you ask, they answer your question, they answer. And really that helped me a lot on integrating in the society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabel, for such a wonderful description. You know, we are not a burden. We are here to contribute to the society, and so, you know, I will feel welcome if I am exposed to the opportunities for me not to be a burden. You know, that's very powerful. We can continue our discussion, but to learn more about Refugee Storytellers Collective, there is a link for more information in the chat. And there's also information on how to apply to join our team as a collective, you know, Storytellers Collective. So there is also information on how to join us. So please, you know, consult that information and join us. So we continue our discussion, and so if there is any question, please put them in the chat, and we will answer them as they come in. So I will move on to the next few questions that I'm you know, going to ask panelists again. And the next question is, how can our communities foster belonging, and how can we demonstrate to our new neighbors that they are seen, you know, as Americans? How do we demonstrate to our new neighbors that, you know, they are seen? Let me start with Bahati, you know, on that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pierre, for that question. I think for me, we are already welcoming refugees, but now the question is what happens when they get to our new communities? I think for me, after welcoming refugees, we have to make sure that they are supported. We have to listen to them, we have to listen to their needs, we have to listen to their challenges, and that's the only way we are going to be able to support them in a meaningful way. I'll give an example. I was working in Connecticut with the Integrated Refugee and Immigrant Services. I was managing an education program where we had hundreds and hundreds of Connecticut citizens making sure that they volunteer to pair with the student every single week to support them to transition their US education system, answering questions about their new home. And I compared this program to students who did not have the opportunity. I realized students in the program had a high rate of success in their education compared to the students who didn't have. I think these are some of the things we would like to see. Communities coming up, pairing with refugee agencies, working in their communities and making sure that we support refugees by answering the questions they have about the US system, navigating the system, answering the questions they have. Even when we don't have what to give them, we can guide them and provide the information they can use to be able to navigate their new life in the US. Number two, I think we also need to engage them in our various communities and sharing the community resources and opportunities for them to be able to succeed in their new home. I think Isabella just talked about buying two homes. Buying a home is a huge process. When I looked at it, I freaked out. I was like, I'm not doing this year. I think you need all that guidance in making sure that we are supported in achieving some of these dreams. The other piece I look at is when we come to the US, we respect the US culture. And also when we come to the US, we come with our own culture. I think mixing these cultures sometimes can bring tension. but also how do we find, how do we strike a balance in making sure that we respect each one's culture and, appreciate it. So I think that's important for me. And then on addition to that, I will say that let's donate money and, specific items refugees need. These refugee agencies cannot do it themselves. It's not their job to, to welcome refugees. I think it's a collective responsibility in making sure that refugees succeed and live a meaningful life in the United States. Back to you, Pierre.
Thank you so much, Bahati. I would like to listen to Khalil. How can our communities foster belonging, and how can we demonstrate to our new neighbors that we see them?
I would like to second Bahati on most of the points that he actually highlighted, but I also want to add another point. A lot of time when we're talking about refugees, people think that we're talking about a group of people who don't have anything. They are coming from poor countries. They only need resources. That is not always true. Sometimes refugees can be people from the very advantage or probably from the most advantageous part of the community, where they come from with high education. They even come with a lot of resources of themselves. But because they're in a new culture, in a new country, in a new community, in a new environment, sometimes they don't really need resources. They just need a community. They just need people who can reach out to them. And oftentimes it's not about what you give them. It's about how you acknowledge them as who they are. Listen to their story, because they have stories to tell. They have they have gone through a journey of their own. They have, like Bahati mentioned, they have their own dreams and aspirations. They have their own nightmares. And oftentimes you just need to be there for them to listen to that story. Just be part of the conversation. So I think, first of all, acknowledging them as who they are, because fostering community is not just about giving resources. It's just building a relationship and bridging the gaps between the two cultures, and in this case, the old culture and the new culture, the culture of the receiving and the culture of giving. And for me, being seen is not always about giving me something. Being seen is to just sit down with me so we can have a conversation, a discussion of how our values can overlap, what are our common values, what are our differences, and what are our similarities. Oftentimes being seen is just sharing a meal with me. We can invite refugees to share a meal with us. They can share some of their own country's cuisines with you, and they can basically connect with you through the food, because food is a common communicator. And oftentimes we forget that by breaking bread, we actually break borders. So these are the things that you can do in order to help a refugee to feel welcomed and seen. Not necessarily always about giving. Let me give you my own experience. When I come to the United States, I know that everyone talks about refugee resettlement agencies. The only reason I actually went and registered there was to connect to a community. And honestly, I had no housing background, and I never even actually get help from refugee resettlement agencies to get an apartment. I went and rented an apartment on my own without any help from the refugee resettlement agency. I found my own job without help from resettlement agencies. I started building a community without resettlement agencies, but I had another community that I could actually reach out to. The veteran community was a very good resource for me because I had experience working with the U.S. Armed Forces in Afghanistan, and through them, I was able to get connected to some other resources that usually are not available through the resettlement agencies. And again, I had so many opportunities by going and meeting other peoples outside the resettlement agencies. And I'm really thankful to those who reached out to me and just sat down with me and actually shared a meal. I always love to invite people to my house, and I cook an Afghan meal for them, because this is how we can connect to a much different level, and we can have a much more profound conversation sharing a meal. And you don't have to give me something in order to be my friend, and in order to be supportive of who I am, in order to be able to help me feel that I am seen in this community.
Thank you so much, Khalil. Wow, that's powerful. The meal, the first time I started having a conversation with, my host, they asked me, what is your staple food, back home? So when I started describing it, they were like, oh my God, I can't wait to test it. So, the connection starts from there. And, breaking the bread, like you say, is breaking the barriers. And that's what powerful.
Before coming to the United States, I was actually living in Europe for a decade. And again, I was as a refugee in Europe as well. I remember I was going around and talking to students in different schools in Poland. I got invitation to go and talk to a group of different age and different classes of students in a school in Warsaw, the capital of Poland. I had 2 different sessions with 2 different groups. There was a senior high school senior group, and I think there was a middle schooler groups that were between 11 and 12 years old. There were so many times in my journey that I have been asked very stereotypical questions that I would just say, here we go again. And I'm not going to go through the stereotypical questions. You all probably know what I'm referring to. But what I was most fascinated about that group of 11, 12 years old students was that they were so innocent in their own way that all they asked me were questions about how do you connect with people? What are some of the things that you actually connect with? And one of the most fascinating questions was asked by a young man, a young boy, who asked me if I actually ever cook food of my own country to the Polish community. And I love that question because it shows that this is, again, another aspect of our life that we forget how close it is. Everyone eats. Everyone on this planet eats. And
Yes.
when you bring a plate of food and then you sit down with few other people, no matter what is their background, you realize how much similarities you have. And another thing I love to actually talk about food is, for me as an Afghan, whenever I cook to my friends, especially those who never had an Afghan experience or an experience of having an Afghan meal, no matter how you miss up that meal, they wouldn't understand. I will cook. I burned. I overcooked. Again, no matter how you miss it, I just tell them, hey, this is how we made it in Afghanistan, and they were like, it's very tasty. And I was like, no, I actually burned it. I overcooked this meal, but they wouldn't understand. So it actually brings a laugh, but at the same time, again, it gives you an opportunity to connect with them in a whole different level that you wouldn't usually do.
Yeah, Thank you so much, Khalil. You just reminded me of, my neighbor. I'm just, as we talk, my neighbor just across, next to my house. I was doing my gardening just in my backyard here, and I planted some African, vegetables. And so when they were ready to harvest, he looked at them and he's like, Pierre, you guys, you mean you have those too in your country? And I was like, you know them? He's like, yeah, I used to plant those when I was young, but I didn't know they can grow in Florida. And so I harvested some and I shared with him, and that was the beginning of our connection, and it was very, very powerful. Yeah. Isabel.
Thank you, Pierre. I think Bahati and Khalil, they say almost everything, but I just want to also add on the stories. How can we share stories? We cannot only get stories from refugees, but stories can be shared vice versa. Americans sharing their stories and us refugees sharing our stories. I know sometimes when we go somewhere, people ask about our stories, but when we ask their stories, they say they will just say I'm from here. And that's how they stop there. But I know that every person has a story to tell in this country. Either you are born here, or you came as an immigrant, or you came, and anywhere you came, you have a story to tell. And that is very important for when it comes to being seen, and also how we can also connect with our neighbors. And also, we can also share religion. When we share stories, we also share religion. We also, when we are sharing the religion and the stories, there will not be a top-down approach, because most of the time people use the top-down approach. Some people, they just come and say, we want to help. What can we help you with? You're not here to help me. You help me and I will help you, which means I have also my expertise as a refugee, as a refugee, and also as an American, you have also expertise. Then we meet together and also we share what I know, and then I share what you know, and then we meet and we form a community. And that's what sometimes people don't know. They'll just come, what can I help you with? And the way Khalil say, people, they will come and they'll say, okay, this is what, take this one, you need this one. Maybe I don't need it. I just need you to talk to me, so that at least I can know what is here for me also to pick up and also start what I can also do. And also coming to also the other things, also continuation of services. When we come here, we're supposed to have a continuation of services. We don't need money. We can work and get the money. How can we get the services for us to be self-sufficient? Because every refugee who come here wants to be self-sufficient from the first day. Because I remember when I arrived the next morning, when I went to the resettlement agency, I asked them, when am I going to start working? I want to work. And they were like, you just arrived. I said, yes, I just arrived, but I lost 17 years in the refugee camp without doing nothing. Practically nothing. Depending on others, I want to work. And everybody was amazed. And after 2 months, I got a job, and I pick up from there. And since that time, the medical insurance was canceled, and also the food stamp was canceled. And I didn't mind, but I had just a challenge. The challenge I got is that the way Khalil and Bahati, they're saying, we just need information, because when we get information, it will help us not to make mistakes. Mistakes are there to learn, but when it's mistakes that are very very huge and very extreme, then it will give us a challenge of how you can start your life here in America. When I came here, after 2 months, when I got a job, when the medical insurance was canceled, I went to the resettlement agency and I asked them, what can I do? Because they sent out the letter and they said that, okay, you have to apply, you have to buy the insurance. And we ask them, why do we have to buy the insurance? And it's for what? Their offices, they don't have time to explain all those questions. And those questions we're supposed to get from the community. But because we were new, we were not connected with our neighbors yet, we lost that sense of how we can get the information. And they told us, you have to buy the insurance, and it was so expensive. We went there for example, me coming from Africa, when I buy something, I have to negotiate the price. If it's 500, I'll negotiate until it can go up to 300 or 250. And I came with that here in America. When I went to welfare, the first thing I said, okay, you are telling me that I have to pay 600 to get the insurance, right? It's too expensive. Can you reduce the price? And they were like, no, we cannot reduce the price. It's the system. Then I asked, what is the system? What is the system? They say, no, it's the system. Okay. But I say, the system is us. That's what I knew myself. That's what I assumed, that the system is people. Now, if there are people out there deciding that this is what I have to buy, then somebody have to decide to reduce it because I cannot afford. And they say, no, according to the system, the salary you are getting, you are able to buy the insurance for your own. I say, okay. Then I asked them, I'm not sick. I'm not sick. Why should I have insurance? I don't need to pay the insurance. I didn't know how important it was. And in that process, I got sick, and I was I was admitted for 4 days. And I paid a very, very huge amount of money during that time. I didn't have insurance. And I just saw that, okay, if we could have assistance from people, or if we ourselves, we could ask at that very moment the neighbors, maybe we could not go up to that extent, because they could maybe just tell us that, hey, it's good, but if you have it, it's better, because if you are sick, this is what's going to happen. And also, talking about the refugees, it's true, it's not every refugee is dependent on the public or on the government benefits. We want to work because we want to be independent, and also we want to have what is ours. What you believe me, I felt so good and so excited the first time I became a homeowner, because at least I have something I own on my own. And I was so excited because it was a two-floor home. I was living in one, and I was hosting somebody in my house. I felt so proud of myself. And that's the dream of every refugee. And also, when we come here, we come already with a very huge bill, especially refugees who have a big size, a big family. There are refugees who are more than 10 people. Our flight ticket, we pay it ourselves. The government doesn't pay our flight ticket. When we go through the process of resettlement back home, where we call home, when I say back home, is the refugee camp, because it's where we stayed a long time. When we come from the refugee camp, during the process of resettlement, they give us a number. Every refugee, either you know English or not, there will be a translator. They will interpret to you very well. You are going to understand very well, and you sign a waiver that when you arrive here, there's a number you have to call after 6 months. Either you are working or not, you have to call that number to tell them, so that they can do a payment plan. And that organization is the International Organization for Migration. And that is the organization that is responsible to buy the flight ticket for refugees here. And when, not only here, also, I think I'm just talking about here in America, because it's where I am. I don't know what is happening in other resettling countries, but I assume that is also the same. Now, After, imagine you come, you are 10 people. Each person, the flight ticket is more than 1,000. And it's already, you have already a huge bill of more than 18,000 or more than 15,000 waiting for you to pay. As a parent, and all of them, the children are underage, you have to pay for every child. And it's not like you pay for one person. When you are done with that person, you pay another person. If it's 10 people, they are going to give you a payment plan. I don't know how much, but what I remember myself when I came, it was $38 per person. And that $38, they multiplied by 10 people, which means you have to pay $380 every month. And if you are not working, when you call them, tell them, I didn't start working yet, and they'll wait. That's the problem. And also the other challenge when it comes to that money is that they do that for refugees to have credit. Imagine we are coming from the refugee camp, either in our countries, either in the refugee camp. We don't know what is credit. And we didn't even integrate in the system already. We didn't integrate ourselves already. We are already talking about the credit. And many refugees, they're having issues on getting on credits, because once, even if you don't pay that bill for IOM, then your credit gets damaged. And before you know what is happening, you're already in a credit dilemma. And I also just want to say that when we talk about how we can be seen, or how our neighbors can be seen, they can see us or be seen, participating in a block parties is very important, because when you go and participate in block parties, you'll know your neighbors, you'll know the people around you, and also walk. That's what helped me to know my neighborhood, to know who is next to me, who is nearby my house. Because when you walk, especially during summer, you are going to know who is near your house. Everybody's outside. Sit outside. Just say hi to everyone you see near you. And that's what helped us to connect. After they see that you are more than 2, 3, 5 years, then children start playing together. You meet to the park, and then you start connecting with your neighbors. And also, I think that's all for now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Isabel, you are talking like a case manager. You have gone through this and you see them every single day. I like, self-sufficiency. We are not here to beg. We are not here to depend on anyone. We are here to contribute to building this nation that has been so generous to us. And, that's a way of, paying back and, being recognizant of what they have done for us. There is a question in the chat on how does one go about making strategic moves to shift culture in those spaces, especially in education, where perhaps culture is not centered or seen as important. Bahati, would you speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Pierre. I already typed in my answers in the chat. I think maybe I can elaborate more. I think my experience is that when we come here, we don't know much about our new home, and also our hosts don't know much about us. That's one of the experiences I encountered a few months after I was resettled. And now the question is, how do we cohabit and making sure that there is no tension between us and our new neighbors. So I think for me, what I've seen help or work is to be able to learn, the willingness to learn, and making sure that we both listen to each other. I think we have cultures and practices we come with, and also we find the new cultures and the practices here. How do we make sure that we are all, we might not be on the same page, but we can try to find a way of having conversations about our cultures. There are things we are not proud of about our own cultures, and we are getting rid of them. And also there are things we refugees, when we come to the US, we find overwhelming and challenging. So how do we make sure that we have those conversations? I know sometimes they can be tough, having like a conversation about racism. it's a tough conversation to have. But for us to move forward, we have to be able to have these tough conversations and be able to discuss ways we can support one another and ways we can address some of these issues. So I think the willingness to learn from both sides, at the same time, relearning about our perceptions, our myths and stereotypes. And I think some of these programs were created for us to be able to share who we are, what brings us here, in a way of educating our new host. And I think it is also helpful for us to also hear from them what they think about us, what they think about our cultures, and why we pray a certain way, why we dress a certain way, why do we eat certain food. So I think for me, the willingness to learn and relearn can help us move forward. Back to you, Pierre. Thank you,
Bahati. Khalil, I would like also to hear from you, your perspective on this cultural, differences can create, tension. And, how do we, go about making, that shift, in these spaces where we have differences?
I think nothing can help more than just getting engaged. Having the conversation with your neighbor would actually help you understand where they come from and help them understand where you come from. Unfortunately, in the United States in the past years, there is a notion of a lot of people can't really agree on some of the most important aspects. But with that being said, it does not mean that we should go and ignore some of the most important issues that we need to discuss. There were so many times that I get to talk to people who understand the refugee in a completely different way. But after engaging in a conversation with me, at the end of the day, we walk away with respect. We shake each other's hand. And they admitted that, okay, we got the whole issue wrong. And now we get it. Now we understand that where you come from and how that background actually contribute in your perspective. I give you a very vivid example of that. I was hitchhiking in Western Poland a couple of years before I come to the United States, and I was hitchhiking to go to Germany. I was exchange student in Germany. I came back to Poland to visit some friends, and I was on the way back to my classes. The semester began, and I got picked up by a middle-aged, ordinary Polish citizen. We started a conversation, and he started asking me who I am, where I come from. And once I told him that I'm a Muslim immigrant and a refugee in post-2015 Europe, he realized that I was actually a walking example of his daily nightmare. But then we got further into the conversation, and he realized that I am studying in Poland, and I speak Polish, which was their language, their tongue. After a few minutes of very basic conversation, he looked at me and he said, "Oh, wow, you are like us." For me, that was a compliment, because I actually shattered his mental image. In his mind, refugees were people aliens coming from different planets. But because he never actually had an interaction with another refugee before, he kept that mental image that was fit into his mind from whatever its source was, media or whatever that source was. As soon as he saw me and he got involved in a conversation and he realized that I am like them, he admitted that he got the whole story wrong, and for me, it was a compliment, although it was offensive. At the same time, it was offensive to see that someone thought that refugees might actually be someone completely different than they are. But I felt that it was a compliment because he admitted that mental image was shattered. And then from that moment, I made it my mission that everywhere I go, if I see ignorance, I do not ignore it. I get involved, I get engaged, I have a conversation, I will ask tough questions, and I will try to respond to these questions in the best of my ability so that I can educate that individual. And if we do that on a daily basis, if we get engaged with our neighbors, if we get engaged in a conversation in a grocery store, if we get engaged with conversations with our peers at work, then we are able to educate every one of those individuals who don't really know what refugee is or what being refugee means. So my recommendation is, if you are finding yourself in a situation where you face an individual who doesn't really understand your pain, don't ignore them, because ignoring them would actually just create this atmosphere or this environment of ignorance. Try to get engaged in a conversation and educate them on who you are, what are your values, what do you stand for, what your dreams are, and how you are similar to that individual.
Wow, that's powerful, Khalil. You know, that ignorance really, you know, almost put you off. But I agree with you. Don't allow that ignorance to you know, supersede, you know, your perception. Don't ignore them. You know, we have to engage them in conversations so that they know, they can understand exactly where we come from and who we are. And also, you know, there is a lot of influence from the media, from, you know, the politics and everything. But at the end of the day, we are all human beings and we share all aspirations. You know, we aspire to succeed. We aspire to, you know, have access to all available opportunities. Whether you are American or a refugee, we all aspire on, you know, on the same, you know, entitlements.
I want to add another point, because I think it's very important. As a refugee, I actually went a long way to get a bachelor's degree on American studies before coming to the United States. I get to educate myself on America and American history, American society for 4 years before coming to the United States. I refuse to believe that Americans should actually just ignore the issue of refugees. We need to get them engaged. We need to get them educated, even if they don't want to. We need to push them into the situation where they have to go and learn, because we know that this country is all about immigrants. The United States will not exist if it wasn't for immigration. United States is the land of immigrants. Every person who believes they belong to this land, if they go back several generations, they will realize that they were some immigrants in some way and or shapes or form. So if I get the moment to go and educate myself on American history and American society, I would like to see that some of my American peers, some of my American colleagues, some of my American neighbors are actually taking the time to understand who I am, learn about me, and educate themselves about me. And if they need help, I'll be more than happy to actually be the force behind that, you know, knowledge to educate them on that.
Thank you so much, Khalil. I know we are almost, you know, at the end of our session, but there's one more question that says, I believe there are so many myths people believe about refugees, negative ones. How can we work towards dispelling these myths in mainstream American culture? Isabel, can you speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Pierre. When it comes to myths, and when we integrate in the American culture, we also have to make sure that we break the barriers of myths. Because when it comes to myths, people believe on something, and what is happening is totally different. Engaging with community members, the host community will help us to learn from each other, and that will help us to break that issue of thinking negative thoughts, either from refugees or from Americans themselves. And also the other thing that we have to do, we have also to embrace, we don't need to abandon our culture. We can abandon what is not good, the bad culture practice, we have to abandon it, because there are laws and the regulations and the policies that we have to follow, and no one is above the law. And this is practiced here with a very serious effect. Then we have to do our best, whatever which is not good of our culture, we have to abandon it and keep on what is good for our culture, and also get what is good for the American culture, embrace it, and leave the bad practice of the American culture also, because there is all both sides, all both ways. Everything goes hand in hand. And also we have to learn new things. We have to learn new things. We have to, I always talk about reading newspapers, watch news. You have to know what is around you, what is going on. Maybe you go outside, maybe somebody was killed in front of your door. You don't know, and you come out. We have to have that learn how to access the libraries, learn something new, and also talk about it. Because I remember when I went to, I'm in college, I'm doing social work, and we had I had a professor who gave us an English professor who gave us a assignment to try something new and talk about it in the class. And one of my colleagues, when I came to my job, I shared it with my colleagues. Do you know what my teacher told my professor told me that I have to try something new. And my colleague asked me, what is new that you saw here? I never had a sushi. I told her I never ate a sushi. She said, okay, I'll try my best to take you to a sushi restaurant, but I'll make sure that I'll accommodate you to eat the best sushi, so that you can have the best experience. And that's what she did. Imagine if I could not tell her, I could just keep it on myself, and I could not even have my grades, because I had to try something new. And it was a very good experience, because it's something totally new. And I went to school. I was so proud to talk about it, and everybody was so amazed to see that somebody never tried a sushi. And some people, they were making it funny, but they were really they took it so serious, because it helped them to know that it's not everything. People who are here, don't assume, because when you assume, you make a lot of mistakes. Ask, you get answers either from refugees or Americans, and that will help you to manage life and also integrate everybody. And also, I also just want to say that we are here. It's true, we are not a burden. We are not a burden. We pay taxes. We are self-sufficient. We are contributing to the development of the country, because it's the refugees and the immigrants who are working in the factory. The factory is full of immigrants and is full of refugees, because when we come here, the entry-level job is factory. And we are the ones who are making the ball roll. And for the people to know that, we have to tell them. And we have also to show them that we exist, and we are here, and we are here to stay. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. I agree with you, and you know, another way of fighting against these myths is, you know, what we are doing right now, to tell the stories. You know, we are living testimonies of you know, the achievements that we are making in this country. And so, you know, that's why holding, you know, events like this one, tell the stories and, you know, show them what we do, will continue to change, you know, these narratives. And that's why, you know, I would like to continue to invite people to join our storytellers, you know, collective, so that we can continue to fight against, you know, these narratives. And with that said, I would like to thank you so much for attending, and you can see the link in the chat to learn more about the Refugee Storytellers Collective, and we will be happy to welcome you to join us, you know, as we continue this fight against the immigrant communities in this country. So
yeah, maybe 1 second. I think Khalil just mentioned something very important. I think we should all be aware that and understand that refugee and immigration issues should be a collective responsibility. It shouldn't be the responsibility for the government. You all have a role to play. So let us all be engaged. Let's find all those avenues to engage and support refugees. At the same time, holding our governments accountable to the actions and decisions they make. Sometimes we have to be engaged in our foreign policy and making sure that we understand what our governments are doing in making sure that some of these problems do not exist. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bahati, for such a powerful, you know, conclusion. So we have come to the end of our you know, discussion, and thank you so much for everyone to, you know, attend, and thank you to our amazing panelists for such a wealth of knowledge and the willingness to, you know, to share the stories and continue to change, you know, the society that we live in and that we call our home. Thank you, and I will see all of you next time. Have a nice evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you all.
Everyone.
Thank you.